Welcome back, folks. It's the 30th of June, 2020, and tonight we are going to be talking about a subject which is probably more pertinent now than ever before. There was always a discussion for this, but now in lieu of the COVID issue, it's even more important. We'll be back in half a second, and we'll get right into it. Hi, once again. Anyways, a couple things right off the top. Maybe I haven't learned my lesson yet, so in case I have to excuse myself for a moment, I have my dog loose, been penned up for a little bit, so I felt bad. So he's a little bit loose right now. If he starts making a commotion, I gotta go put him in. Also, just want a reminder that this live stream and everything that I do concerning my my training facility, web pages, other YouTube pages, is all concerned with promoting and propagating natural training. Whether you be a fitness athlete, whether you be a competitive or non-competitive bodybuilder, just want to get yourself in shape. This is supposed to be all about natural athletes, and there's so much out there for everybody else. It's time we start putting out some platforms specifically for us. With that said, okay, we're going to jump right into it. We're talking tonight about private versus public training facilities. And there's some pros and cons for each one, as any subject will produce. Over the course of my 40-some years, I have never actually trained in a private facility. I also, when I started training, there was really no such thing as trainers or coaches or that type of thing. So there was no real place to go. There were public gyms, but there was, and back then, there wasn't even really any of the big box gyms you see now. There was a couple of older defunct franchises that were up, at least in the Ottawa area. I think they're long gone now, long since replaced with every other big box name that you can think of. So it never really was a discussion we had back then, which way to go. And for me, now it's much more pertinent because, of course, we have the whole COVID situation here, so a lot more issues come into play. But let's just discuss things in general, first of all, and then we'll talk about, how COVID plays into all this, okay? Because I really don't like to dwell on the COVID issue itself, to be honest with you. I've just about worn it out myself. I think it's really having a much bigger impact on people in their lives than it should. That being said, I'm not saying that it doesn't have its merit. You need to be aware and you need to be conscious, but you still need to live your life. So anyways, let's talk about public facilities, what they have to offer, the pros, the cons. Public facilities in general, strong points. Well, first of all, generally speaking, they have a lot of equipment to choose from. Most of them, especially the big box stores. Lots of equipment, multiple pieces of everything all over the place. Generally speaking, they have good hours. Some of them in more recent years have gone to a 24-hour format, which is wonderful. Up until my facility opens, I train at a gym and have been at one for 2 years now that is open 24 hours. Also, you can get some minimal instruction for quite cheap. I talked at length about personal training and types of trainers. Well, in a big box environment or in a franchise environment, you don't get top quality training, not by a long shot. Many of the people that are doing the training that you get as a benefit are hired basically as salespeople. and they happen to train people as part of their job. But many of them just use a routine that is already laid out for them. You don't get the specific one-on-one approach that you will by hiring a personal trainer or going to a private studio. Um, the other thing, the other bonus part about, I guess it depends on what type of a trainer you are. If you like your training to be a bit of a social event, well, you're going to get a lot larger clientele at a public gym. So you have a lot more people you can meet and talk with and that type of thing, if that's what your primary goal is. The other thing is they offer, generally speaking, especially not the privately owned, but in the bigger gyms, they offer payment programs which are quite affordable to a lot of people, and the overall price is quite fair for what you get. Keep in mind that's the key word, for what you get. Um, a lot of them you'll have memberships from 30, 40, 50, maybe up to $70 a month type of thing. You go into a private gym, not a private gym, but a privately owned public gym, a smaller version. You'll go a little higher on your rates. But generally speaking, most of those places still do offer payment options for getting that done. Some of these facilities also offer extra activities, everything right up to from babysitting or daycare or maybe even tanning beds, a few other things. But keep in mind that usually these things are extra and you pay for them. We can talk about the cons. Cons to the public gyms are, they're usually quite overcrowded. Unless you're an individual that goes really early in the morning or really, really late at night, if you go to prime hours, meaning the prime hours, there's a certain period in the morning and in the evening, you can go in there and those gyms can literally be packed, just packed. And in spite of having all that equipment, you can actually find yourself still waiting to get on stuff. So it doesn't leave you a lot of options about, getting an effective workout done in a timely fashion. Many of the people that go to these gyms are not taught etiquette, so they hog machines or they sit on machines even when they're not training on them. Slows everybody else down, so you have to put up with that. You have to put up with obnoxious people. If you don't like to be bothered by individuals in a gym, you have to put up with them because some people do think it is a social event. A lot of men specifically will go to a gym specifically just to try and get close to women. That's what they do. They're not really there to train. And I don't just mean young men, I mean men of all ages. The other thing is the quality of the training, as I mentioned before, is subpar at best. Before I paint everybody with the same brush, there are the exceptions. There's the odd person that gets hired on there that truly does love, fitness and, has taken the time to learn a little bit about their profession, and they actually looking at it as a profession, not just something to get them to school or to kill time in the short term. So those are the things you get. Those are your some of your cons. The other thing is, if you're not at a 24-hour gym, the hours they're reasonable, but they're not the best. And some of the facilities, depending on where they're located, may not have a greatest amount of parking because of the amount of clientele they have. Another drawback. Um, those are basically the pros and cons of a public gym, of the big box style. You go into a more private, smaller version, so a small owner type of thing. You'll get a little less clientele. You get a little less busy, but you'll also deal with a little less equipment. So without the ability to schedule things, you're still dealing with prime time hours type of thing. And the other problem is a lot of those facilities aren't very stable. I can tell you, and I've trained at probably a half a dozen of those over the course of my lifetime, and every one of them went under. I don't know one that lasted more than 2 years. It's because they're not supported. And the reason you'll say, well, why aren't they supported? Well, they are. And how can the box gyms, make it through and they don't? Well, for a lot of reasons. You got to understand, box gyms are literally, bringing in hundreds of people at a time signing on. And what they rely on actually is the fact that a lot of these people only use the gym for a very short time, and then they don't show up anymore, and they just bring in more, and they just keep rolling. They're not out there to promote fitness. They're out there to promote a product, and sell a membership, and get it done. That's what they're all about. They're not out there to have people change their lives and improve their lifestyle. That's not their main goal. Their main goal is to just make money through selling memberships. Okay. So let's go into a private arrangement, private studio. Pros and cons. Some of the biggest pros to the fact that you get to get trained by an individual one-on-one. That individual who's training you in a private facility, such as the one I'm going to be opening, Bullfierce Training, you'll basically not be paying for a membership. You're going to pay for a month at a time for training sessions, or a week at a time of training sessions, or 3 months at a time of training sessions. So you're paying for the training sessions. And with that, you're going to get quality training, because in my facility in particular, it's only going to be myself, and I will locate maybe one, possibly two other quality individuals who are, who will fit the guidelines that I want. First guideline being plenty of experience and passion. So you will get specific one-on-one training with an individual. That's worth its money right there. The second thing is, some people may consider it a con, but in actual fact, it's a big plus. You get to schedule a workout. What it means is, in a facility such as this, or anybody else's private facility, you're only going to be looking at possibly 2 or 3 people on average being in the facility at a time. So you're not fighting any lineups. You can always get on the equipment. Your workouts are very effective. They're punctual, they're effective, and you get in, get out, get the job done. You don't get bothered by people, because you're in there specifically to attain a goal, and you're dealing with a training instructor who's going to help you achieve that goal. We've already, did the sales part. It's already out of the way. Now it's the job of the trainer, primarily myself here, to get you to your goal. That's what the big step is all about, So the other thing is too, we do run fairly lengthy hours. I can't speak for all facilities. I know that here we'll probably be running a 10 to 12-hour day, which is reasonable for most places. Gives most people an opportunity to come in. The equipment is always going to be well kept and well maintained, because frankly, there just isn't as many people going through it. It's not going to be abused as much. Easier to keep things in order and organized. Far better atmosphere. Okay. Probably the biggest con to a private gym is going to be the price. You got to remember what you're paying for. You're not just paying for the use of the gym. You're paying for expertise. And you're counting on those private gyms to supply you with expertise. Not somebody with a 3-hour, or a 3-week, or a 3-day, or a 3-month course who calls themselves a trainer. Someone who's actually been training out there, lives the lifestyle, is practiced in the field, possibly has an education to back it up. It's not a mandatory requirement, at least not for me. Basically walks the talk. That's what they have to be. So, you get that type of individual, to work with you. The con is that it's a fairly costly venture compared to a regular gym. Regular gym, you're paying basically, like I said, maybe $70 a month. You can go in as long as you want, as often as you want, many times a day as you want. Here, you're going to pay a rate that's going to guarantee you so many training sessions or so many hours per month. And that's generally speaking for any private facility. And also entitled, because many people who are going to a private facility are looking for more instruction than others, usually because they need the help. Sometimes it's because they're an upper level athlete and they need help for different reasons rather than a beginner or a novice. Okay, so the training doesn't come cheap. You know, if you go into a public facility, you'll still pay. You'll get usually one or possibly two or three sessions for free. Then you pay, but you don't pay the same rate as you would. I haven't checked in the rates lately, but you may pay upwards of $50 $60 an hour, or down as low as 40 an hour. But just keep in mind, that's what you're getting. Remember that the club is getting so much and the trainers are getting so much. So the trainers are getting peanuts because they are not really trainers. They haven't earned the right to be charging 90, 110, $150 an hour. I made an analogy in my last video about individuals. You go for a dance lesson and you pay upwards of close to $100 an hour sometimes for a dance lesson. So, I think a super qualified private instructor who's going to help you attain your goals is worth not the same kind of money as they are. How some facilities structure things, though, which is how I do it, is you go with just a straight hourly rate and want to just buy a session, you're going to pay the highest amount, and that's going to be upwards and around $100 an hour. But if you decide to sign on for at least a group of sessions or a monthly package or something, you start doing much better. It's never going to be cheap, because cheap you might as well, cheap and bad training philosophies go hand in hand. You don't get good quality instruction for cheap. Okay. Anybody tells you they do, I see all types of ads out there for people, they're talking about, I'll train you for $25 an hour. I'll train you all. You don't want to be going to people like that. Okay. So we talked about, pros and cons for both. Let's talk about, the COVID situation in itself. Right now, this discussion is far more pertinent than it ever was, because now people are super concerned about being in proximity to one another. They're also super concerned about, cleanliness of the facilities and the equipment. A lot of the public places are doing some limitations to how many they let in, when they let them in, and that type of thing. Many 24-hour places aren't even allowed to open 24 hours right now. A lot of them don't even allow you to use the shower facilities. So in this day and age right now, a private facility is almost the only way to go, because you're never going to have to deal with the same type of crowds that you would as if you're in a public place. And being able to sanitize and keep that equipment clean in between individuals is so much easier if you only have two on the floor at any given time, or one on the floor at any given time. Compare that against 50, 70, or 80 people in a club. Some of these are more, even during COVID, because they have a large facility, but there's a lot of people. And they don't possibly have enough staff to go around and have that equipment, constantly clean. So they're relying on people to do their own job. Right? So they take care of their equipment and do their part, keeping everybody safe. Right? So I think you really need to weigh that in. And moving forward, well, many people have just decided that everything has basically changed permanently. So if that is how you look at things, if that's your state of mind, and you think that well, we can't ever go back to the way we were, it almost becomes a no-brainer that you go to a private facility. And I can tell you right now that the demand is getting extremely high, because people, some of it is fear. But people, once they get in and they get trained in an environment such as this, with an instructor who's passionate, who wants you to attain your goal every bit as much as you want to attain your goal, plus you do it in a much safer environment, a much more controlled environment, it's a no-brainer. Why would you want to go back to the other environment? But it comes down to, can you afford it? And the sad thing is, you know, private facilities can't afford to, trim down their prices. They just can't. We still pay rent. We still pay, we still have all the same overhead, you know, and you need to make a living. We don't want to do this for nothing. Uh, Myself, I have more of a mandate than just the gym itself. I really, this gym that I'm putting together is a culmination of a lot of dreams. I've never wanted to own a public gym, and only because of all the problems that I've seen public gyms have. But to be able to be a first-rate quality instructor in my own facility, where I got to basically create people, create better versions of themselves. Not that I did it, but I showed them how to do it themselves. That's very fulfilling. And isn't that what somebody wants to do with their life? They want to do something that they're passionate about and be able to parlay that passion into somebody else and then into somebody else and so on and so forth. So, summing it all up, this is not going to be as long a live stream as normal. If you're limited on funds, you're almost going to have to go to a public facility, but you can still utilize a private facility intermittently. That's kind of a trade-off. You can do that. You can say, look, I can afford to use a private facility, maybe a week out of the month or something. So why don't I do that? And some of these other gyms will offer, you can buy groups of training days as well. So you can kind of balance the both of them, right? You can buy maybe a week or a month at a private studio, then do a month or 20 sessions at a regular gym or something. Get everything down and then come back, go to the other one. Just to back up just a little bit, the other thing, at least I offer, maybe not every private facility does, is you get the use of our own personal software. And that software is very important on helping you attain goals. Not only that, it's basically a two-way system between myself and my clients. And that comes as part of your package. You get to use that for free. So I will be able to, over the course of every day, when you're training with me or without me, you get to check in. I get to see what you've done. We can chat back and forth if you're having problems. We can do this in person. There's lots of things you get a benefit of, at least at my facility. And I think a lot of the other private facilities are doing similar things. They're not always using the same setup, but they basically the same type of goal. And I utilize it in my online training with other individuals too. Some people, that's another option, right? Maybe you only need help every so often, and maybe you want to, you can utilize some online training with your in-person training. So you do have options. In the end, you're going to have to decide, how important is this to me? Is this going to be a long-term thing, a short-term thing? Am I really going to utilize it? Because if you think there's even a chance that you're not going to stick with this on a continual basis, it's almost a no-brainer as well that you go to a private facility, because once you go into a gym membership, generally speaking, you're tied into a certain period of time, and they're going to pull those funds out regardless. So you won't be going, but you're still paying. Whereas if you go to the private facility, you're going to pay a certain amount for a certain amount of sessions, but you're not going to be tied into, unless you want it to be, 6 months, a year, or whatever. You can get it for one session. You can get it for 1 week, 1 month, 3 months. I don't even know if we actually be even selling anything above 3 months, because we want people to have that freedom. I like people to, gain the knowledge on their own, to be confident enough that they know what to do, and then they can just utilize my service, to basically, gauge how they're doing, get updates, that type of thing. And I would be very happy with people getting those results. My goal is not just to sell as many memberships as I can, because between my online training and this facility, the facility itself can only handle so many people. So there's only going to be so many longer term contracts, meaning like the multi-month. The rest of them are just going to be hourly or weekly. I have to make room for everybody over the course of time, and I never am going to break the code of having more than 2 or 3 people in here training at a time. So, anyways, we'll just wrap that up and say, think about what you want to do. Give it a lot of thought before you jump in and sign on the dotted line with anybody. Remember, the things that you're going to get in private, the things you get in public, compare those, weigh those out, and then make an informed decision like you would with anything else. I don't care, buying a training outfit, buying a car, buying a house, doesn't matter. Get informed and make a good decision. Anyways, until we come back online again, which will probably be on Thursday, God bless, take care, and I hope everybody trains really hard and takes care of themselves. Bye.